The jungle skies of Virex 4 were supposed to be peaceful that morning, filled with the sound of alien birds and the soft hum of energy vines wrapping the tree trunks. But instead, the air cracked with plasma fire and the ground trembled beneath. Armored boots. Human soldiers had landed in the wrong territory again, and this time the native species didn't ask questions. They attacked first, with beasts at their side that humans had only heard about in fearful whispers. Commander Jace Thorne crouched behind a thick root wall, wiping the sweat from his brow. His team was scattered, comms were down, and half of his squad had vanished into the dense fog. He had one mission now: survive. The jungle was not only unfamiliar, it was alive in a way Earth soldiers weren't trained to handle. Everything here watched. Everything here hunted. He had just taken a step toward the northern ridge when he heard it. Not plasma. Not shouting. A deep, guttural growl. It wasn't close. Not yet, but it was moving. Jace raised his rifle, scanning between the thick foliage. The vines shook. Something large and fast was circling him. Then came the piercing eyes. Amber and glowing, from a shadow too big to be natural. The creature lunged, but not at him. It collided with another beast from the trees. They wrestled in fury, scales tearing, teeth clashing. Jace backed away slowly, heart racing. Then the victor stood still, bleeding, trembling, and staring straight at him. The predator should have attacked. Its fangs were long enough to pierce armor. But instead, it limped closer and collapsed at Jace's feet, one eye shut in pain. Jace didn't move. Something told him this wasn't a random creature. It was wearing something around its neck. A silver band engraved in alien symbols, almost like a collar. Not military. Royal. Jace's instincts screamed to leave it behind. Every minute wasted increased the risk of ambush. But something inside him refused. He knelt beside the beast, feeling its heartbeat slow, labored but steady. This wasn't a wild animal. It had intelligence. A past, and someone had once cared for it. He tore off strips from his pack, wrapping its wounds and whispering calmly to it. His voice wasn't for comfort. It was to remind himself that he was still human. As the sun fell behind the alien canopy, Jace built a makeshift shelter. He used foliage to mask their heat signatures and plasma cells to create a weak perimeter. The creature didn't sleep. Its eyes followed his every move. Yet there was no aggression. Only pain, only silent understanding. He didn't know it yet, but this act, this small decision to help, was about to change the fate of an empire. Back at the human command ship orbiting Virex 4, alarms were blaring. Not from enemy fire, from silence. 3 squads had gone dark. Drones showed only heat signatures vanishing mid-transmission. The jungle was consuming soldiers. Command assumed the worst, but one signal still blinked on their board. One man, still moving. They didn't know he wasn't alone anymore. In the deep shadows of Virex's jungle, alien eyes were watching, not hostile ones. Not wild beasts, but armored guards in black and gold. They had been searching for weeks. Searching for the last heirloom of the Empress's bloodline. A predator bred in royal lines, feared by armies, yet bonded by ancient code to one ruler only. And now it was bleeding in the arms of a human soldier. As night fell, Jace felt the ground pulse. The vines retreated. The air thickened. Something was approaching, not an animal. A presence. He looked up and saw nothing. But the beast stirred. It growled low, alert and alive. Its eyes locked onto a point behind him. Jace turned with his weapon raised. And then he saw her. Standing in regal armor, skin painted in crimson patterns, and hair glowing like the moonlight. She didn't speak. At first, she looked past him straight at the wounded beast. And her voice cut the silence like a blade. "That's no pet. Human. That is the Empress's blood," she said, her words heavy with fury and disbelief. Jay stood frozen, rifle in one hand, beast at his feet, and an alien royal with eyes full of purpose in front of him. He didn't know the language, but he understood one thing clearly now. The creature he saved was not just a monster. It was a legacy, and every faction in the galaxy would kill to get it back. Jace kept his rifle steady, though his pulse roared like thunder in his ears. The woman before him wasn't a soldier. She wasn't a scout or a native. Her armor shimmered with energy-threaded scales, and her stance held the weight of command. She stepped forward with deliberate grace, her boots untouched by the vines beneath her. The beast at his feet whimpered once, then rested its head back down, as if finally safe. He didn't lower his weapon. Not yet. He couldn't understand her words, but her tone told him everything. She knew this creature. She wasn't surprised to find it. She had been searching. And now, her glowing eyes, green like the alien jungle, were locked on him with unreadable judgment. The woman knelt beside the beast without a word, placing a clawed hand against its brow. The creature shivered and let out a low growl that melted into a soft breath. Jace took a step back, unsure of his place in the moment. He had expected danger. He had prepared for death. But what he saw now was reunion, something sacred, something ancient. Without breaking her gaze from the creature, she reached into her chest plate and pulled out a small crystalline cube. When she spoke into it, her voice echoed slightly, and then clear and sharp it repeated in English. "You touched what is not yours, yet you gave it care. Why?" Jay stared at her, lowering his weapon only slightly. He didn't want to lie. His voice came out hoarse. "It was hurt. I didn't know what it was. But I couldn't leave it. It trusted me. I couldn't betray that." The cube repeated his words in her language. Her expression didn't change, but something in her shoulders eased. She stood slowly, taller than he expected, and the jungle seemed to quiet around her. Then she said something that wasn't translated. It sounded like a name. She whispered it to the beast, and it blinked once in response. More figures emerged from the trees, silent and swift. Armored aliens with glowing eyes and curved weapons. Not one made a move toward Jace. They only stood in formation behind the woman. She turned to face him fully, her eyes narrowing. "You walk on sacred ground. You saved a royal blood beast. That makes you inconvenient." Jace's grip on his rifle tightened. The air felt heavier. He was about to speak when she held up hand. "But you also proved your kind is not entirely blind. You acted with heart, and that beast chose you. That cannot be undone." The meaning settled in slowly. She wasn't threatening him. She was informing him. Whatever bond he had unknowingly formed with the creature, it mattered deeply, culturally, politically. It had weight he couldn't measure. He looked down at the beast, who was now watching him with calm, intelligent eyes. "What happens now?" Jace asked, unsure whether to fear her or trust her. The woman turned and spoke to one of her soldiers, then looked back over her shoulder. "Now, human, you come with me. You have started a chain that cannot be broken. The Empress will want to see the man who touched her heirloom." Before he could respond, she raised her arm and a sleek ship descended through the canopy, its engines humming softly. Vines parted as if respecting the vessel's arrival. Jace hesitated only for a second, then nodded. He bent and helped the beast to its feet. It leaned into him slightly, growling low, but not in pain, more like gratitude. The soldiers didn't offer help. They only watched with silent respect. Jace could feel the weight of every gaze. As he followed the woman onto the ship, he realized how deep he had fallen into something he didn't understand. But the beast beside him had chosen him. That mattered. And somewhere high above, in a throne room built into a starlit palace, an empress waited. Inside the ship, everything gleamed. Smooth crystal floors, vines woven into living walls. The air smelled of strange oils and warm fire. The alien woman stood near the front, giving orders through the translation cube. Jace sat with the beast beside him, his fingers brushing its thick fur. The creature leaned against his leg like an old companion. He looked out the window and saw the jungle vanish as the ship pierced the clouds. The stars opened up around them. He knew Earth Command would call him reckless, disobedient, maybe even a traitor. But for the first time in weeks, he didn't feel lost. He felt needed. Above him, galaxies turned. And at the heart of one of them was a queen who had lost a piece of herself. A beast bred for war, trained in loyalty, and born to protect her line. Jace had saved it. And now, because of that, he wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was part of something bigger, much bigger. The ship soared above the cloud line, quiet and smooth, but Jace could feel tension in the air. The alien soldiers did not speak to him, but their eyes followed his every move. They didn't view him as a prisoner. They didn't treat him as a guest either. He was something in between. A complication that none of them knew how to address. The beast lay curled at Jace's feet, tail tucked close, its breathing shallow but steady. It had refused help from the alien medics, but allowed Jace to touch and clean its wounds. The creature responded to no one else. That loyalty unsettled the soldiers, but they dared not question it. Not openly. Across from him, the armored woman remained silent. Her presence radiated command. She stood like she had never known fear. Her hand rested on the hilt of a blade carved from bone and crystal. Her armor gleamed with ancient etchings, each one telling a story Jace couldn't read. Yet, in that silence, something passed between them. A recognition. Neither of them had expected this meeting. But neither could walk away from it now. You still don't understand what you've done, she said through the translation cube without turning. No, but I'd like to, Jace replied. The woman glanced at him, her eyes sharp and unreadable. She walked toward him slowly, her boots echoing softly against the crystalline floor. Long ago, before the humans knew our stars, the Empress's line bred protectors. Living weapons, not soldiers, not machines. Beasts forged through centuries of bonding and battle. One for each ruler. And only one. Jace looked down at the predator at his feet. It blinked slowly, eyes soft but aware. You mean this is like a royal guardian? Not like it is or was. Until it vanished during the insurrection. Many believed it dead, but she never stopped searching. The Empress believes in signs, and the beast choosing you? That is a sign she cannot ignore. Jace took a deep breath. His hands rested on the beast's side. He wasn't a diplomat. He was a soldier who had made a split-second decision to help a wounded animal. Yet here he was, tangled in alien politics older than Earth's written history. Will she punish me? He asked quietly. The woman tilted her head, almost amused. If she wanted you dead, the jungle would have swallowed you already. No, she will see you, test you, and decide what part you now play in her legacy. The ship descended through a layer of violet clouds. Below them stretched a massive city shaped like a spiral galaxy, built into the side of a mountain that glowed with living light. Towers of glass and crystal pulsed with energy. Bridges arched across the sky. At the center stood a palace unlike anything Jace had ever imagined. Floating rings surrounded it, orbiting like moons. The ship landed on a glowing platform guarded by towering sentinels in silver robes. As the ramp extended, the soldiers stepped aside. The woman gestured for Jace to follow. He stood and helped the beast rise. It limped beside him, but its eyes were clear. Its spirit remained unbroken. They walked through halls lined with statues of alien rulers and etched stone. Alien children paused to watch them. Adults bowed as the woman passed. Whispers filled the air. They weren't looking at her. They were looking at the beast. And at him, inside the throne chamber, the temperature dropped. Not from cold, from awe. The Empress sat on a seat of floating stone, her face veiled by golden light. Her gown shimmered like stars on still water. Her voice echoed through the chamber. Without movement. Not translated, direct, into Jace's mind. You carry something ancient with you, human. A trust not easily earned. Rise and speak your truth. Jace stepped forward, heart pounding. He had faced down machines, beasts, and storms. But this woman's presence silenced every thought in his mind. He bowed slightly. I didn't know what it was. I only saw something wounded. Something left behind. I couldn't walk away from that. The Empress stood slowly. The chamber dimmed as she descended. Each step she took, the light followed. She knelt beside the beast and placed her hand over its heart. Her fingers trembled, not from fear. From memory. His name is Tereth. He was born to guard my daughter. She died. He vanished. We feared he had broken. She stood and turned to Jace. But he chose you. That means he still remembers how to protect. That means you remind him of her. Jace didn't speak. There was nothing he could say that would carry the weight she needed. So he simply nodded. The Empress raised her hand. A ring of guards stepped forward, not with weapons. With gifts, cloth, water, food, recognition. The Empress had made her choice. This human would not be punished. He would be honored. But honors in this palace came with consequences. You will stay, she said. You are bound now. Until he chooses to leave you or dies at your side. The chamber bowed. Jace looked down at the beast again. It stared up at him, eyes full of old scars and new hope. And Jace finally understood. He hadn't just saved a beast. He had inherited a legacy. The palace was more than a home. It was a living monument. Every wall held memories carved in silver and stone. Every hall echoed with centuries of vows, oaths, and bloodshed. Jace walked those halls now, dressed in robes offered by the Empress herself. They felt strange on his body, woven from fabric that shimmered with energy and weight. He didn't feel like a guest. He felt like a puzzle piece forced into place by a story larger than himself. Tereth walked beside him, no longer limping. His wounds had healed faster than Jace expected. Alien medicine, perhaps. Or something deeper. Every being they passed, guard, servant, or noble, bowed not to Jace, but to Tereth. Yet their eyes lingered on the human, as if trying to understand how a predator so sacred had chosen someone so foreign. A servant led Jace into a circular chamber filled with light and gentle wind. Vines lined the walls, blooming with floating seeds that glowed softly. Waiting inside was the armored woman who had first found him in the jungle. She stood near a long table where ancient scrolls hovered mid-air, turning slowly without touch. You've been summoned for the bonding, she said simply. I thought that already happened. Jace replied, glancing at Tereth, who now lay near the table. Eyes calm. No, that was instinct, survival. What happens today is sacred, ritual. It binds not just soul to beast, but man to empire. Jace frowned slightly. I didn't ask for this. You didn't need to, she said. He chose. And once chosen, you are no longer a soldier. You are a sentinel. She walked to the center of the chamber and gestured for him to follow. Reluctantly, he did. She placed her hand on a platform etched with glowing circles. A pulse ran through the room. Light gathered in the air above them, forming shapes, memories, visions, past sentinels locked in battle. Empresses standing beside their beasts. Humans had never appeared in these images. Until now, the chamber responded to Tereth's presence. A glowing thread formed between the beast's chest and Jace's. It shimmered faintly, like breath caught in moonlight. The armored woman began to chant in her native tongue, and the thread grew brighter. Jace didn't feel pain. He felt heat. Pressure, then silence. Something settled inside him, like a door closing. Or opening, The thread faded, but its presence remained. Tereth stood now, his body straight and still. His tail curled around Jace's legs as if in quiet approval. The armored woman lowered her hand and exhaled. It is done. You are bonded. He will hear your thoughts, and you his. When danger comes, he will move before you speak. Jace looked down at the beast. A strange calm filled him. He could feel something faint at the edge of his mind. Not words, not images, but emotion. Tereth was aware of everything around them. And somewhere in that connection, there was trust. The door to the chamber opened, and a guard stepped in. The Empress summons. The sentinel. The woman nodded. Jace followed the guard through long hallways and open sky bridges. Below, he saw armies training, ships landing, and markets full of life. Yet all of it paused as he passed. Whispers followed him. The human sentinel. The outsider chosen by bloodline. In the Empress's private chamber, she stood before a long window overlooking the capital. Her veil was gone. Her face was marked with scars and beauty in equal measure. She looked tired, but her eyes held fire. War is coming, she said without turning. The rebellion that took my daughters still grows in shadows. They think me weak, that I grieve in silence. But now they will see the blood of my line walk again. She turned to face him, her voice sharp. You are not my subject, you are not my kind, but Tereth chose you. And by our law, that makes you my sword. Jace didn't answer. He waited. I do not expect loyalty, I demand understanding. This empire is fragile. One wrong move could fracture it. But with you, I may show them something they fear more than rebellion. Jace stepped forward. What do you want from me? To stand, she said, beside him, before them, and prove that the bond still lives. That my daughter's protector has returned. That you are not a human soldier, but a symbol. Jace nodded slowly. He wasn't a politician. He wasn't trained for this role, but he knew how to fight. And now he had something worth fighting for. Tereth growled softly behind him. Not a warning. A vow. The Empress raised her hand, and from the floor rose a blade. Not steel, not crystal. Something between the two, etched in the language of the Sentinels. She offered it to him. Take this, and be seen. Jace wrapped his fingers around the hilt, the chamber lit with ancient light. Tereth stood beside him. And for the first time in history, the Empire saw a human become legend. The arena stood carved from volcanic stone, its floors scorched black from ancient trials and bloodshed. Spectators filled the upper balconies, whispering behind veils and ceremonial masks. They came not for entertainment, but for judgment. To see if the Empress's decision would break tradition or strengthen it. Jace stood in the center, the foreign blade in his hand reflecting twin suns above. He wore no armor, only the sentinel robes gifted after the bond. At his side, Tereth paced, slowly, low and alert. The crowd grew quiet as the Empress entered her skybox, flanked by guards in silver and crimson. She raised her hand, and silence took hold. Beside Jace stood two others, alien warriors of high blood. They had trained for years. One was tall and coiled like a serpent, armed with twin glaive blades. The other was shorter but thicker, armored head to toe in obsidian metal. Their expressions were unreadable, but their mission was clear. Test the human. Test the bond. A gong echoed across the stone. No instructions. No countdown. Only instinct. The first warrior lunged, blades slicing through the air with blinding speed. Jace rolled to the side, the movement smooth, learned from 100 battlefields. The second warrior followed, crashing forward like a juggernaut. Jace ducked under the swing, spinning with the alien blade, meeting steel with steel. Sparks lit the dust. Tereth didn't interfere. He circled the edge, watching. His role was not to fight yet. The Empress had made that rule clear. The beast would act only when Jace fell. The trial was not just of skill, but trust. Would the human fall? Would the beast allow it? Or would the bond rise under pressure? The taller warrior struck again. This time faster. Jace blocked the first, dodged the second, but the third slash caught his arm. Pain flared, blood dripping down his robe. The crowd shifted. Whispers turned sharper. Jace gritted his teeth. He didn't step back. He advanced. He feinted left, then rolled forward under the glaive's arc, coming up beneath the warrior and driving his blade upward. The alien twisted away, hissing. A shallow cut, nothing more. But it was a message. The human wasn't just surviving. He was learning. The armored warrior roared and charged, both fists swinging. Jace braced himself but was too slow. A solid strike caught his ribs, throwing him back across the arena. Dust rose. The spectators leaned forward. Tareth stood frozen, muscles tight. Jace coughed and pushed himself up. His blade trembled in his grip. He looked toward the Empress. She did not move. Her gaze held no pity. Only fire. He turned back and saw both warriors moving in. Together, coordinated, one high, one low. Jace shifted his weight. He didn't run. He advanced. The first blade came down, and Jace caught it on his own. The force nearly broke his wrist. He turned, deflecting the second warrior's punch just enough to avoid the full blow. He twisted, kicked, and slashed. One warrior fell back with a grunt. The other pressed forward. It became a dance. Brutal. Beautiful. Jace moved with rhythm, now not just skill. His mind linked with something deeper. He wasn't just reacting. He was sensing. Behind him, Tareth growled softly. Jace didn't need to look. He could feel the beast's breath, its warning. Something was changing. The taller warrior, bleeding now, lost patience. He reached into his belt and drew a hidden spike. It was Forbidden's. A weapon laced with neurotoxin. The Empress's guards moved to rise, but her hand stopped them. Her eyes fixed on Jace. The spike came fast, aimed for Jace's throat. But before it could strike, a roar split the air. Tareth lunged. He crashed into the attacker with full force, knocking the blade away and sending the warrior sprawling. The crowd gasped, not at the attack, at the precision. The restraint. Tareth could have killed, but he did not. He obeyed the bond. The remaining warrior stepped back, raising his hands. His eyes wide. He would not fight. Not against that. Jace stood breathing hard, blood on his robe, pain in every limb. But he stood, the blade still in his hand. Tareth returned to his side, tail brushing lightly against his leg. The trial was over. The Empress rose. The arena fell into silence again. The sentinel stands, the bond lives. My daughter's legacy walks in shadow no more. The crowd bowed. Even the warriors kneeled. Jace did not raise his arms in victory. He simply turned to Tareth and nodded. They had proven something today. Not just to the Empire, but to each other. The beast had chosen him. And Jace had chosen not to fail. Asterisk night fell over the capital. But the palace never slept. Crystals embedded in the towers pulsed with soft blue light, glowing like stars that had been stolen from the sky. Jace stood at the edge of the royal balcony, dressed in a dark cloak lined with gold threads. Below, crowds still chanted. Not for him, for the sentinel. For the beast who once belonged to the bloodline and had returned through the bond of a stranger. Tareth lay stretched beside him, tail flicking slowly. His eyes scanned the sky, sharp and restless. He didn't sleep. Not since the trial. Jace could feel it too. A tension in the air. A storm waiting behind silence. Footsteps approached. Jace didn't turn. He had learned by now that the Empress's guards moved like shadows. The armored woman, his guide since the jungle, stepped beside him and looked down at the crowds below. "You impressed them," she said. "But politics runs deeper than victory. Not everyone celebrates your rise." "I figured," Jace replied, voice quiet. "Some of them looked at me like I spit in their ancient scrolls." "You did," she said, almost smiling. "But that scroll needed ink." She handed him a small crystal disc. Its surface rippled with holographic light. As Jace activated it, images formed: burning cities, wounded nobles, stolen technology, faces covered in masks, symbols painted in blood. "The rebels, they've grown bold," she continued. "They move faster now. The trial didn't scare them. It challenged them. If the Empress still has strength, they must strike harder." "And what do you want me to do?" "Lead," she said. "You and Tareth. You're not just a symbol. You're bait. They want to destroy what the Empress restored. So we'll give them a chance to try." Jace narrowed his eyes. "You're using me." "Yes, and so is she. And so are they. But what matters is that you choose how you're used." She placed her hand on Tareth's side. The beast didn't flinch. His eyes locked on hers. A silent exchange passed between them. Then she turned and walked away. At dawn, a shuttle carried Jace, Tareth, and a small elite unit beyond the city walls. The jungles returned first, then Broken Stone. Old temples once ruled by faith, now scarred by war. Their destination was an outpost reclaimed from the rebellion just weeks ago. Intelligence warned of a counterattack. The Empress believed the rebels would strike there next. The soldiers with Jace didn't speak much, but they watched him closely. Not with hate, with caution. They had grown up hearing stories about the Sentinels. None ever thought the next one would be human. They landed in silence. The outpost was still under reconstruction. Towers half-formed. Turrets inactive. A perfect target. Jace paced the perimeter with Tareth beside him. The beast moved like a ghost, sniffing the wind, ears twitching. He felt something coming before any sensor did. It started with the wind dying. Then came the sound, soft, mechanical. "Not from the sky, from below," Jace shouted, drawing his blade. The ground exploded as enemy pods burst upward. Dozens of rebel troops swarmed out, masked and armed with tech stolen from the Empress's vaults. The unit moved to defend, but they were outnumbered. Jace didn't retreat. He charged straight into the enemy, Tareth at his side. The beast moved. Like a storm, fangs flashing, claws tearing through armor. Jace ducked under a plasma bolt, slashing through a rebel's weapon arm. His movements were no longer human alone. They were sensed with Tareth's fury. They didn't just fight. They danced. Jace kicked one enemy back, then spun to block another. Tareth leapt overhead, crushing three with a single swipe. The rebels tried to scatter, but the bond hunted them down. One by one. Efficient. Unrelenting. A rebel captain aimed a pulse cannon at Jace's back. The shot fired, but never landed. Tareth twisted midair, intercepting it with his armored shoulder. The impact threw him into a wall. Dust rose. Jace turned, heart sinking. Tareth didn't move. "No," Jace growled as he sprinted to him. The rebels tried to regroup, but his rage burned brighter. He slashed through them with wild precision. Every strike screamed vengeance. Blood hit the walls. None remained standing. He knelt beside the beast. Smoke curled from Tareth's shoulder. Burnt scales, shallow breathing, but alive. Jace placed his hand over the creature's chest. "You stayed between me and death," he whispered. "Now I'm going to do the same." The Empress's reinforcements arrived minutes later. They found the outpost secured. Bodies of rebels scattered. And in the center stood the human sentinel, blade bloodied, cloak torn, crouched beside the Empress's heirloom. He didn't speak when they approached. He only raised his eyes and said one thing: "Tell her the fire lives." Tereth stirred beneath his hand. The bond had been tested, and it had not broken. The halls of the palace glowed dimly with morning light as Jace entered carrying the weight of survival. His cloak was still stained from battle. Tereth limped beside him, the wound on his shoulder freshly dressed but deep. The guards parted. Without word, no salute, no questions. Just silence. The Empress stood waiting in the Chamber of Lineage, where portraits of her ancestors watched from crystal panels. She faced away, hands clasped behind her back. When she turned, her expression held no fury. Only knowing. You lived, she said. We bled, Jace answered, his voice tired but steady. She looked at Tereth, who stood still now, breath slow but eyes bright. She stepped forward and placed her hand against his brow. Her fingers trembled slightly. Then she faced Jace again. You stood in the fire and didn't fall. You led warriors not born to you. You defended a relic, not yours. You claimed nothing, yet you gave everything. Why? Because he trusted me, Jace said, nodding to Tereth. Because someone had to stand between death and what mattered. The Empress closed her eyes. When she opened them, her voice changed. You've stirred something dangerous. The old lines whisper now. Families that once stood loyal now fear your rise. They speak of broken laws, tainted tradition. They plan. I assumed they would, Jace replied. She nodded. They will move in darkness. They won't challenge me. They will come for you. Jace took a step closer. Let them. She studied him for a long moment. Then she raised her hand. A young alien girl stepped into the chamber. She was small, wearing white ceremonial cloth, eyes large and uncertain. Tereth's head lifted instantly. His gaze softened. He took a slow step forward and lowered his head before her. The girl reached out and placed both hands on his snout. Her fingers glowed faintly. Jace's breath caught. The Empress spoke softly. My granddaughter. The daughter of the one Tereth once guarded. Born in secret during the fall, hidden for protection. Few know she lives. Jace watched as Tereth leaned into her touch, his tail curling gently around her feet. She carries the blood, the Empress said, but she is young, and the court will not accept her alone. Not unless someone shows them that the legacy still protects. You want me to guard her, Jace said. No, she said. I want you to raise her. The words struck harder than any blade. He looked at the girl again. Her eyes were full of something he couldn't define. Not fear. Not innocence, something older. Like memory reborn. She trusts him already, the Empress added. And he, you. What better foundation is there? Jace didn't answer right. Away, he knelt slowly, reaching out. The girl didn't flinch. She looked into his eyes and smiled. It wasn't a royal smile. It was quiet. Pure. He placed a hand on her shoulder. I'll stay. I'll protect her. Not for the court. Not for legacy. For him. For her. The Empress stepped forward and laid a ceremonial crest in his hand. The symbol of House Virex. A sign that he was no longer an outsider. No longer just a soldier. But part of the line. Then you are no longer sentinel, she said. You are guardian. That night, torches lit the palace grounds. Citizens filled the plaza. The Empress stood on the grand balcony, the girl beside her. Tereth lay curled at her feet. Jace stood behind them, sword at his back, the new crest on his chest. The Empress raised her voice. The heir has returned. And with her, the guardian. Let none doubt the bond. Let none forget the price of loyalty. The plaza roared with approval. Not because of tradition, but because of unity. Because something forgotten had returned, not through blood alone, but through choice. Jace glanced at the stars. He had come here as a lost soldier. Now he stood as protector of a future he didn't know he wanted. And as the young heir turned and gripped his hand, He realized something deeper. He wasn't just part of the Empire's story. Now he was rewriting it. Morning sunlight spilled across the royal gardens, touching stone fountains and blooming alien flora with golden light. Jace stood alone near the statue of the first sentinel, a warrior carved from black stone, blade raised toward the sky. Birds sang in the high trees, and soft wind stirred the red-leaf vines. Behind him, Tereth sat still. Like a guardian sculpture, tail curled around his legs. His wounds had healed, but his gaze was sharper than before. Every movement in the palace grounds passed through him. He no longer acted like a beast. He moved like a commander. The Empress approached without escort. Her ceremonial robe dragged quietly behind her, woven with starlight threads. She stopped beside Jace, not speaking at first. Together, they looked toward the city, where banners still waved in the wind with the symbol of the rising air. "The nobles grow restless," she said. "They fear what you represent. A bond chosen by instinct, not blood, not heritage. They whisper of revolt." Jace did not react. Let them whisper. Their time passed the moment she placed her hand on him. She studied his face for a moment. "You speak like a ruler." "I speak like someone who's seen what happens when good people stay silent." The Empress lowered her gaze. For a moment, she seemed older, not weaker. "Just weary from holding a crown too long. The court will meet today. A final assembly. They will vote, not on her right to rule, but on yours. They will decide whether a human has the right to stand at her side. They will decide whether you are guardian or trespasser. Will the vote be honest?" Jace asked. "No, but it will be final." He turned toward her. "Then I'll face them. But not to plead. I don't owe them submission. I only owe her my word." Later that day, the Grand Assembly convened beneath the crystal dome. Pillars of white stone held up the chamber, and every noble house stood in its marked place. In the center, the young heir sat quietly on a silver pedestal, her hands folded in her lap. Tereth lay beside her, watchful and ready. The Empress stood above all, presiding without expression. Jace walked into the chamber through the central gate, dressed in black and gold robes of his rank. A sword was strapped across his back, though it was peace-bound. His boots echoed as he crossed the floor, each step deliberate. The nobles watched with narrowed eyes. Their whispers danced between seats. A voice rose from the eastern dais, deep and angry. "This creature is not of our world. He was not chosen by right. He is not family. Why should a stranger be given the title guardian?" Another voice from the south. "Because the beast chose him. And in our law, the beast's choice stands above blood." Murmurs followed. The chamber divided in murmurs and glances. Jace waited until the silence returned. Then he stepped to the center and faced them all. "I didn't come here for power. I didn't come here for honor. I came because I found something bleeding in the dirt, and I chose not to leave it behind. That one choice led me here." He turned and pointed toward the air. "She's not just your future. She's your test. How you treat her, how you protect her, defines who you are as a people. You want to vote? Then vote. But don't ask whether I belong here. Ask whether you deserve her." Silence fell, deep, true. Then one by one, the nobles cast their vote, some with pride, some with reluctance, some with fear. But when the last crystal orb was lit, the final glow filled the dome with amber light. Majority in favor. The Empress stepped forward, holding the crest of Virex in her hand. "Then it is law. Jace Thorn of Terra, bonded of Tereth, is named guardian of the air. May his oath be the shield of our bloodline." Jace bowed low, taking the crest in both hands. The air smiled gently. Tereth rumbled a low approval that echoed through the chamber like thunder. As the court dispersed, the Empress remained with him. "This was not the end," she said. "It was the beginning. You've won a place. Now you must keep it." "I'm not afraid of what comes next," Jace replied. "You shouldn't be," she said. "Because for the first time in centuries, I believe we have a future." That night, from the highest balcony of the palace, Jace stood with the young heir and watched stars dance across the alien sky. Tereth rested beside them, tail wrapped around both like a ring of living fire. Below, the capital shimmered with celebration. He had come as a soldier, he had become a protector, and now he was the heart of a new legend.